First contact fiasco. The transmission came on a perfectly ordinary Thursday afternoon. Every screen connected to the global network flickered simultaneously. Phones, tablets, computers, billboards, and even the massive displays in Times Square. Static cleared to reveal a figure that could only be described as alien. Tall, lean, with iridescent scaled skin in shades of copper and gold, six-fingered hands, and large almond-shaped eyes that reflected light like polished obsidian. In the Global Defense Coordination Center beneath Geneva, Switzerland, Director Helena Chen spilled her coffee as the alien appeared on their primary monitor. "What the hell is this?" she demanded, though no one had an answer. The cybersecurity team was frantically typing, trying to trace the source of the broadcast hack. The alien spoke, its mouth moving oddly around sounds that weren't designed for its vocal anatomy. "People of the planet designated Earth, I am Supreme Overseer Kaltoth of the Dravex Imperium. Our civilization has observed your world and determined that your species poses an unacceptable risk to galactic stability. Your continued advancement cannot be permitted. You will surrender your military capabilities and scientific facilities within one rotation of your planet, or face immediate consequences." For exactly 5 seconds, there was absolute silence in the GDCC command center. Then Lieutenant James Rodriguez, a junior communications officer, snorted so hard that he choked on his energy drink. The sound seemed to break a dam, and suddenly the entire room erupted in laughter. Chen tried to maintain her composure, but even she couldn't help the smile that tugged at her lips. "Someone get me the Secretary General," she said, wiping her eyes. "And please tell me we're recording this." Across the globe, the reaction was remarkably similar. From Tokyo to Toronto, Moscow to Melbourne, humans weren't cowering in fear, they were laughing. Social media exploded with memes within minutes. Late-night comedians were already writing jokes. News anchors struggled to maintain their professionalism as they reported on humanity's first alien contact. What had sparked such universal amusement wasn't just the absurdity of the situation, it was what humans could see behind the alien. What Supreme Overseer Kaltoth had likely intended as an intimidating backdrop of advanced technology looked, to human eyes, like a movie set from a low-budget sci-fi film from the 1960s. Blinking lights with no apparent purpose, control panels covered in what appeared to be household buttons and switches, and most tellingly, what was clearly meant to be a fearsome weapon visible behind the alien's shoulder, a contraption that any human engineer could identify as a modified industrial tool with decorative lights attached. 3 hours later, after an emergency meeting of the United Nations Security Council, humanity sent its official response. Dr. Eleanor Walsh, Earth's leading xenolinguist, had been hastily appointed as chief communicator. She faced the camera with remarkable composure. "Greetings, Supreme Overseer Kaltoth of the Dravex Imperium. I am Dr. Eleanor Walsh, speaking on behalf of the United Nations of Earth. We acknowledge your message and request a diplomatic meeting before any further action is taken. We are prepared to send representatives to a neutral location of your choosing." What she didn't mention was that behind her, the UN's military representatives were still periodically breaking into fits of giggles. General Viktor Petrov of Russia had to excuse himself twice during the filming of the response. The Dravex responded within the hour, apparently surprised by Earth's willingness to negotiate. They proposed a meeting at what they called the edge of your solar system, near the orbit of Neptune. "They want us to come to them," Chen noted during the strategy session. "They probably think we can't reach Neptune." Dr. Sanjay Kapoor, the head of the Global Space Initiative, smiled broadly. "Should we tell them we've had probes beyond the heliosphere for decades now?" "No," Walsh replied thoughtfully. "I think it's better if we let them maintain their assumptions for now. Send the Artemis II. It's not our newest ship, but it should be more than sufficient." The Artemis II, a research and diplomatic vessel that had been conducting studies in the outer solar system, changed course and headed for the rendezvous point. Captain Olivia Martinez and her crew of 30 were selected as humanities representatives, along with Dr. Walsh and a small team of xenobiologists, linguists, and diplomatic experts. As the Artemis approached the designated coordinates, they got their first look at the Drevex fleet, 5 vessels arranged in what was clearly meant to be an intimidating formation. To the humans on board, however, the ships looked remarkably inefficient, with odd protrusions that would create unnecessary drag in atmosphere and energy signatures that leaked radiation in ways that suggested poor containment. Their technology, murmured Chief Engineer Takashi Yamamoto as he studied the readings. It's functional, but it's like looking at something we would have designed 2 centuries ago, before we understood proper energy conservation principles. Captain Martinez nodded. Maintain respectful communications. No matter what their technological level, this is still first contact with an alien species. The Drevex sent a shuttle to meet with the Artemis. As the airlock cycled and the alien delegation entered, Dr. Walsh stepped forward with a diplomatic smile. Supreme Overseer Zaltoth was even more impressive in person, nearly 7 feet tall, with ornate markings on his scaled skin that might have been natural or cultural. It was impossible to tell. "Welcome aboard the Artemis II," Walsh said. "We're honored to host this historic meeting." The 6 aliens froze just inside the airlock, their obsidian eyes widening as they took in the ship's interior. Zaltoth made a strange clicking sound that the translation software couldn't interpret, but seemed to indicate distress. "Is everything all right?" Walsh asked, maintaining her smile. The alien leader composed himself with visible effort. "Your vessel. It is not what we expected." "Oh." Walsh kept her tone casual. "In what way?" Another of the aliens, wearing what appeared to be some kind of scientific insignia, was waving a device around that emitted soft beeps. "Overseer," the alien said in their own language, which the ship's eye was already beginning to decode, "their power systems. I don't understand these readings, and the material composition of this ship." Zaltoth silenced his companion with a gesture. "We were led to believe your species had only recently achieved rudimentary space travel." Captain Martinez stepped forward. "We've been exploring our solar system for over a century, Supreme Overseer. Our first probes left the solar system's boundaries nearly 80 years ago." This information clearly disturbed the aliens. They conferred among themselves in rapid, clicking speech that the translation eye was still processing. Walsh led the delegation to the ship's conference room, where refreshments had been prepared based on xenobiological analysis of what might be safe for the Drevex physiology. As they walked, she noticed the aliens studying everything. The smooth operations of the doors, the efficient design of the corridors, and especially the casual way the human crew interacted with the ship's eye. "Tell me, Supreme Overseer," Walsh said once they were seated, "what led the Drevex Imperium to believe we pose a risk to galactic stability?" Zaltoth seemed to be reconsidering many things, but he answered with dignity. "Our observation probes detected your primitive attempts at interstellar communication, as well as the dangerous radiation experiments you were conducting. The energy signatures matched those of civilizations that later developed world-ending weapons." Dr. Kapoor, who had joined the meeting via holographic projection from Earth, leaned forward with interest. "What sort of radiation experiments do you mean, specifically?" "Your broadcasting towers," one of the Drevex scientists said. "The radiation pulses you send across your planet, and the particle accelerators." Kapoor blinked, then understood. "You mean our telecommunications systems and our physics research. That's what you call your weapons development?" Zaltoth asked, those obsidian eyes narrowing. Captain Martinez intervened smoothly. "I believe we have a significant misunderstanding here. Perhaps we could exchange information about our respective civilizations to clear things up." What followed was one of the most extraordinary exchanges in human history. The Drevex, it turned out, had evolved on a resource-poor world where technological development had taken a radically different path than Earth's. Their understanding of physics was comprehensive in some areas, but had bizarre gaps in others. They had achieved space travel through sheer determination rather than efficient engineering. As the humans carefully explained their actual technological capabilities, the Dravex delegation grew increasingly agitated. When Dr. Kapoor casually mentioned Earth's quantum computing networks and fusion energy grid, Zoltov actually stood up in alarm. "You've achieved stable fusion, but that's..." He trailed off, those alien eyes fixed on the humans with new wariness. "Perhaps," Walsh said gently, "you might tell us why you really came to our solar system." There was a long silence. Then, with what seemed like resignation, Zoltov gestured to his scientific advisor. "Show them." The alien activated a holographic display. It showed a star system with 9 planets, one of which was clearly the Dravex homeworld. But approaching the system was something else, a massive object trailing cosmic debris. "A rogue planet," Kapoor whispered, immediately grasping the implications. "It's going to destabilize your entire system." "In approximately 60 of your years," Zoltov confirmed. "We've been searching for a new home. Your world seems suitable, and we believed you would be easily displaced." The conference room fell silent as the humans processed this information. They weren't facing conquering warriors. They were facing desperate refugees who had grossly miscalculated. Captain Martinez broke the silence. "I think," she said with a small smile, "that we need to continue this conversation with our full scientific teams involved. Because if your problem is a rogue planet, that's something we might actually be able to help with." The look of disbelief on the alien faces needed no translation at all. Galactic neighbors. The emergency summit in Geneva 3 weeks later was unlike anything Earth had ever seen. Representatives from every nation gathered alongside the Dravex delegation to discuss what had quickly become known as the Rogue Planet Project. In the Grand Assembly Hall of the United Nations, Supreme Overseer Zoltov stood before the gathered human leaders, his copper-gold scales gleaming under the lights. The intimidating bluster of first contact was gone, replaced by a dignified humility that had won him surprising respect among the human delegates. "We came to your world as conquerors," he admitted, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "We believed ourselves superior, only to discover that we had profoundly misjudged your species. The Dravex Imperium offers its formal apology to humanity." There was a moment of silence, then applause rippled through the assembly. Secretary General Aisha Mbeki rose to respond. "Supreme Overseer, Earth accepts your apology. More importantly, we accept the opportunity to forge an alliance that could benefit both our peoples. Dr. Kapoor, please present the preliminary findings." Dr. Sanjay Kapoor approached the podium, his excitement barely contained. The holographic display behind him activated, showing the Dravex home system and the approaching rogue planet. "After analyzing the data provided by our Dravex colleagues, we believe we can prevent the catastrophe threatening their system," he announced. "The solution combines our gravitational manipulation technology with the Dravex's remarkable expertise in stellar dynamics." The plan, outlined in detail over the next hour, was audacious. Earth would provide the technology to create a series of massive gravity anchors, devices capable of generating controlled gravitational fields. These would be positioned strategically throughout the Dravex system, gradually altering the rogue planet's trajectory over the next decade. "It's not simple," Kapoor admitted, "but our simulations show a 94% chance of success. The remaining risk factors can be mitigated through the evacuation protocols we're developing concurrently." As Kapoor spoke, Helena Chen watched the Dravex scientists' reactions from her seat in the diplomatic section. Their obsidian eyes reflected the holographic projections, and she could see the moment when understanding dawned. One of them, the chief scientist named Mevlorin, actually trembled visibly. "You can truly do this?" Zoltov asked when Kapoor finished. "Save our homeworld." "We can," Kapoor confirmed. "And in return, we ask for knowledge exchange. Your understanding of stellar dynamics exceeds ours, while we have advances in other areas that could benefit your people." The terms of the alliance were negotiated over the following days. Earth would help save the Dravex homeworld, and in exchange, the Dravex would share their knowledge of the wider galaxy. Because as it turned out, the Dravex Imperium wasn't alone out there. There are 17 spacefaring civilizations within 200 light-years of Earth, Dr. Eleanor Walsh explained during a briefing with the GDCC. According to the Dravex, most are significantly more advanced than they are, though none have shown interest in this region of space. Are any of them threats? General Petrov asked, all traces of his earlier amusement gone. Walsh shook her head. Not immediately. Most follow something the Dravex call the principle of developmental autonomy, essentially a non-interference doctrine for emerging civilizations. The Dravex violated this principle when they approached Earth, which is partly why they attempted to frame their arrival as a response to a threat rather than an exploration. Chen leaned forward. And where does humanity fall on this developmental scale? That's the interesting part. Walsh smiled. Based on the Dravex assessment, we're somewhere in the middle, more advanced than they expected in some ways, less so in others. They've never encountered a species that developed along our particular technological path. 6 months after first contact, the first joint human-Dravex mission launched from Earth's orbital shipyard. The UNES Harmony, a newly constructed vessel incorporating both human and Dravex technology, carried a mixed crew of 40 humans and 15 Dravex to deploy the first gravity anchor. Captain Olivia Martinez stood on the bridge, watching Earth recede in the view screen. Beside her, Mev Lauren monitored the ship's innovative hybrid systems. Your people adapted our stellar navigation principles remarkably quickly, the Dravex scientist observed. The integration with your propulsion technology is elegant. Martinez smiled. That's humans for you. We're good at improvising. The Harmony's mission was a spectacular success. The gravity anchor was deployed at the calculated coordinates, the first step in a decade-long project to divert the rogue planet threatening the Dravex homeworld. But the mission yielded something equally valuable: genuine friendship between the two species. Lieutenant Rodriguez, now serving as communications officer on the Harmony, found himself in the ship's recreation area one evening, attempting to explain the concept of poker to 3 fascinated Dravex engineers. Their inability to control the reflective quality of their eyes made them terrible at bluffing, which led to much amusement on both sides. So your entire world thought we were ridiculous when we first contacted you? Asked Tevrath, the youngest of the Dravex engineers, as he tried to arrange his cards with 6-fingered hands. Rodriguez grinned. You did threaten us with what looked like painted plumbing pipes, but honestly, it turned out for the best. If you'd appeared more threatening, we might have responded with fear instead of amusement. The Overseer has often said that our greatest mistake was also our greatest fortune, Tevrath reflected. Had we approached any other known civilization as we approached yours, we would have been rejected or destroyed for violating the principle. 18 months after first contact, a Dravex delegation accompanied Earth representatives to the Galactic Concord, a loose alliance of the region's spacefaring civilizations. The arrival of humans caused quite a stir, particularly when the other species learned how the relationship between Earth and the Dravex had begun. They threatened you with outdated technology, and your response was to help them, asked the representative of the Alturian Collective, a species resembling bipedal felines. Most remarkable. Dr. Walsh, now serving as Earth's ambassador, smiled diplomatically. We saw an opportunity for mutual benefit where others might have seen only conflict. It's something of a human specialty. The Dravex, once considered a minor power in the galactic community, found their status elevated through association with humanity. Earth, meanwhile, gained access to the accumulated knowledge of 17 interstellar civilizations. 3 years after first contact, a breakthrough occurred that no one had anticipated. A joint human Dravex research team, working on the gravity anchor technology, discovered a principle that revolutionized interstellar travel. By applying human quantum field theory to Dravex stellar dynamics, They developed what became known as the phase drive, a propulsion system that could transition ships partially out of normal space, reducing travel time between stars from decades to months. When the discovery was announced, Supreme Overseer Quetzalcoatl requested a private meeting with Director Chen, who had become Earth's de facto coordinator for extraterrestrial relations. "You understand what this means?" he asked her, those obsidian eyes fixed on her face. Chen nodded. "It changes everything. The phase drive will reshape the galactic community, and it would never have existed without both our peoples working together," Quetzalcoatl observed. "Had we succeeded in our original foolish plan to intimidate Earth, neither of us would have achieved this." 10 years after first contact, the rogue planet threatening the Dravex homeworld passed harmlessly through the outer reaches of their system. Its trajectory altered precisely as calculated by the joint scientific teams. The celebration that followed was broadcast simultaneously on both worlds. On Earth, humans who had once laughed at the Dravex now raised glasses in toast to their alien allies. On the Dravex homeworld, a new monument was erected, a sculpture depicting a human and a Dravex hand reaching toward each other. The inscription, written in both languages, became famous throughout known space. "They came as conquerors. We met them with laughter. Together, we reached for the stars." In Geneva, Helena Chen stood at her office window, watching the nighttime sky where the first Dravex human passenger liner was visible as a moving star, carrying tourists and students between the two worlds. She thought back to that ordinary Thursday afternoon and the laughter that had filled the GDCC command center. Sometimes, she reflected, the most powerful response to a threat isn't force or fear. It's simply the ability to see the humor in a situation. Humanity had laughed in the face of apparent danger, and in doing so, had turned potential enemies into invaluable friends. It was, perhaps, the most human victory of all.